Okay. So everyone, hello everyone. Good afternoon. Okay, I hope all of you still have the energy for our excited discussions today. So we will discuss a very hot topic, I would say, and we have one of our Indonesians unicorn as well. Will be one of the speakers today. So I'll look forward to that discussions. So without further ado, I would like to call our guest speakers for today. So the first speaker is Mr. Leonardo A.A. Teguh Sambodo from Ministry of National Development Planning, Bappenas. Please come to the stage, Pak Teguh. So I would like to call the second speakers. So Ms. Tessa Wijaya, Chief Operating Officer and co-founder of Sandit. Okay, next, I would like to call as well Mrs. Cherry Abrigo, founder and CEO of Sierra the Philippines, or ASEAN Inclusive Business Awardee 2022. Please come to the stage. We will also have one online speakers that participate online today. So Mr. IRTS Kuhan Pati, founder of PLSB Masalah Wheels Malaysia. Oh. Yeah, so whether he's online already,
Yes, I am.
Oh, you are online already. Okay, so because we couldn't see you from, there you are. Okay, yeah, good to see everyone. So, okay, before we start, I would like to introduce you a little bit to our guest speakers for today. So just a little bit about their background, so why they are here as well, to talk about, the mobilizing social impact on inclusive business as well. So first is Dr. Leonardo Teguh Sambodo, Pak Teguh. So he basically holds a role of senior advisors to the Ministry of National Development Planning for leading sectors and infrastructures development since 2023. So he was the director for industry, tourism, and creative economy of Bappenas 2016-2023. His significant contributions include being deputy directors for SME support system, and the head of technology and production system section at Bappenas. So please give a round of applause to Pak Teguh. Yeah, thank you very much. Our second speaker is Ms. Tessa Wijaya. So Ms. Tessa Wijaya is responsible for the overall business operations of the company, including service and support partnerships, and government public relations, as well as compliance. Her ability to multitask played a significant role in Sandit business landscape that bring the company to where it is now, making her known as the leaders that can make things work. So prior to building Sandit, Tessa has a successful career at various private equity firms for 7 years, including Kuwait, Fairways, and Mizuho. Before embarking on a new journey in the sphere of financial technology in 2015, Tessa earned her bachelor degree from Syracuse University in the United States of America and a master's degree in the University of Sydney, Australia. So a round of applause to Tessa Wijaya. So our third speaker is Cherry Abrigo. So Cherry Abrigo founded Sierra in 2018 as the first zero-waste shop to open in Los Banos, Laguna, the Philippines. She finished the BS in Chemical Engineering from UP Los Banos and Masters in Environmental Science from University of Auckland, and she earned her certificate in Organic Agriculture from the UP Open University as well. So another round of applause to Ms. Cherry Abrigo. And our last speaker is Mr. Kuhan Pati, who participated online. So he's a chartered engineer by professions and a social entrepreneur by passions. In 2015, he co-founded Masalah Wheels, a social venture that empower underprivileged populations, mainly at-risk youth, via food and beverage skill. So please give a round of applause to our last speakers. Okay, so discussing the inclusive business, I think it's quite a trendy topic nowadays. You know, people talks about it, and I think also inclusive business are a powerful approach, basically to be innovative and also continue to contribute to the local community as well. You are doing business, but at the same time, you are also doing community impact. So people are looking at supporting MSMEs, you know, but at the same time also giving them capacity building as well. But at the same time, we also must remember that there are other elements of the inclusive business, such as social enterprises. So they are also part of the ecosystems, right? So social enterprises, they are doing business, but at the same time, they are also doing impact at the local community. So at ASEAN Foundations, we do have these programs. We call it the ASEAN Social Enterprise Development Program, where we support the social enterprises in the 10 ASEAN countries. And they are doing a great work in ASEAN. So one of the examples that I found, I met one of them as well during their participation in all programs. So they are basically empowering the women to produce withers, for instance, one in Cambodia, and then they sell that withers products so that, you know, it can help the women who live in the rural area to support their economy. So meaning that those social enterprises were able to basically earn incomes, and sometimes they are also supporting the local communities as well. So this is one of the examples. But today we are going to discuss more and more, maybe to dig deeper in terms of the inclusive business from our various speakers from today. So first questions, probably I would like to start with Pak Teguh. We were having a discussion just now, so who do I call Pak Teguh? So I call you Pak Teguh, right? So basically, to start these discussions, so my question to you that Indonesia basically produced an inclusive study, right, in the wellness tourism sectors. So it's an interesting research and study that being supported by GIZ as well. So probably you could have share with us what is the government's plan, you know, to pursue inclusive business in the country. So maybe to start with that first.
Thank you. Thank you, Pak Mahmudi. We are very fortunate that we have been assisted by UNSCAP as well as GIZ and IBAN to have a study on how Indonesia can later on develop its own roadmap for wellness tourism that apply inclusive business approach. This study were based on several findings at the grassroots level, recognizing the initiatives that have been started in Bali and several areas in Indonesia, and try to learn, try to extract the main lessons learned that will inform the government on how we can develop the criteria, the guidelines on in developing the wellness tourism based on IB. The question next is that so far the study have been launched in 2018, but the report was available since 2021. We are still trying to figure out on how this IB can be applied. Actually, when we found that many initiatives have been started by our community, and what will be the role of the government in supporting these communities. Then the challenge is, are there gaps that we can fill in, or are there government programs that actually can strengthen these initiatives to become more scalable, viable, and to reach a wider market? What we have learned that when we have the follow-up activities supported by GIZ as well, to develop diversify green tourism village in Lombok Island in Indonesia, next to Bali. It's the village of Bilibante. We learned that it is not about the local initiatives. We need also to match with what the large or medium and large
technology and production system section at Bappenas. So please give a round of applause to Pak Teguh. Yeah, thank you very much. Our second speaker is Ms. Tessa Wijaya. So Ms. Tessa Wijaya is responsible for the overall business operations of the company, including service and support partnerships and government public relations as well as compliance. Her ability to multitask played a significant role in Sandit business landscape that bring the company to where it is now, making her known as the leaders that can make things work. So prior to building Sandit, Tessa has a successful career at various private equity firms for 7 years, including Kuwait, Fairways, and Mizuho, before embarking on a new journey in the sphere of financial technology in 2015. Tessa earned her bachelor degree from Syracuse University in the United States of America and a master's degree in the University of Sydney, Australia. So a round of applause to Tessa Wijaya. So our third speaker is Cherry Abrigo. So Cherry Abrigo founded Ciareza in 2018 as the first zero-waste shop to open in Los Banos, Laguna, the Philippines. She finished the BS in Chemical Engineering from UP Los Banos and Masters in Environmental Science from University of Auckland, and she earned her certificate in Organic Agriculture from the UP Open University as well. So another round of applause to Ms. Cherry Abrigo. And our last speaker is Mr. Kuhan Pati, who participated online. So he's a chartered engineer by professions and a social entrepreneur by passions. In 2015, he co-founded Masala Wheels, a social venture that empower underprivileged populations, mainly at-risk youth, via food and beverage skill. So please give a round of applause to our last speakers. Okay, so discussing the inclusive business, I think it's quite a trendy topic nowadays. You know, people talk about it, and I think also inclusive business is a powerful approach, basically, to be innovative and also continue to contribute to the local community as well. You are doing business, but at the same time, you are also doing community impact. So people are looking at supporting MSMEs, you know, but at the same time, also giving them capacity building as well. But at the same time, we also must remember that there are other elements of the inclusive business, such as social enterprises. So they are also part of the ecosystems, right? So social enterprises, they are doing business, but at the same time, they are also doing impact at the local community. So at ASEAN Foundations, we do have these programs. We call it the ASEAN Social Enterprise Development Program, where we support the social enterprises in the 10 ASEAN countries. And they are doing a great work in ASEAN. So one of the examples that I found, I met one of them as well during their participation in all programs. So they are basically empowering the women to produce weavers, for instance, one in Cambodia, and then they sell that weavers products so that, you know, it can help the women who live in the rural area to support their economy. So meaning that those social enterprises were able to basically earn incomes, and sometimes they are also supporting the local communities as well. So this is one of the examples. But today we are going to discuss more and more, maybe to dig deeper in terms of the inclusive business from our various speakers from today. So first questions, probably I would like to start with Pak Teguh. So we were having a discussion just now. So who do I call Pak Teguh? So I call you Pak Teguh, right? So basically, to start these discussions, so my question to you that Indonesia basically produced an inclusive study, right, in the wellness tourism sectors. So it's an interesting research and study that are being supported by GIZ as well. So probably you could have share with us what is the government's plan here to pursue inclusive business in the country. So maybe to start with that first.
Thank you. Thank you, Pak Mudi. We are very fortunate that we have been assisted by UNSCAP as well as GIZ and IBAN to have a study on how Indonesia can later on develop its own roadmap for wellness tourism that apply inclusive business approach. This study were based on several findings at the grassroots level, recognizing the initiatives that have been started in Bali and several areas in Indonesia, and try to extract the main lessons learned that will inform the government on how we can develop the criteria, the guidelines on in developing the wellness tourism based on IB. The question next is that so far the study have been launched in 2018, but the report was available since 2021. We are still trying to figure out on how this IB can be applied. Actually, when we found that many initiatives have been started by our community, and what will be the role of the government in supporting these communities. Then the challenge is, are there gaps that we can fill in, or are there government programs that actually can strengthen these initiatives to become more scalable, viable, and to reach a wider market? What we have learned that when we have the follow-up activities supported by GIZ as well to develop diversify a green tourism village in Lombok Island in Indonesia next to Bali. It's the village of Bilibante. We learned that it is not about the local initiatives. We need also to match with what the large or medium and large company mission. Yeah, they do have philanthropic approaches. They do have their affirmative actions for SMEs. But when we talk about scale, yeah, economy of scale, and then whether the production capacity, technical and institutional capacity will meet the business type or the business model of the large company, this is the real gap. Then it comes the business development service on how we can support this development. But again, to reach, to increase the scale, the economic of scale of small and medium enterprises is not as easy as we think. Then what we learned that now if we would like to follow up the study to become a roadmap, we need also to equip our knowledge with the scope of the landscape of the large company mission in developing IB or implementing IB. Because as you mentioned, compared to social enterprises, I think IB is more profit-oriented as compared to social enterprises, where the social mission is as important as the economic mission. But for IB, we need to also make sure that the partners on the SME sides can become a good partner to create a more viable business business venture.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much for your insight. I think Pak Teguh. So before I ask Tessa, on the next question, I think it's related with your explanation as well. So how confident are you basically that the study will be put forward and become a reference for Indonesia to basically do something around the inclusive business?
Yeah, we still need to work on the large company side, Because in Indonesia, of course, we don't have special ministries that dealing with large company, because we always know that they have the capability to build their own company, and they to build their own competitiveness. But we need to understand about, because they still need to make sure that their venture will be sustainable. It's now, so when we deal with the partnership, building the value chains between small and medium enterprises and large company, we need to see the alignment in order also to attract engagement from private sector, large private sectors. We also need maybe to recognize their efforts. So maybe in the future, we think that we will work together with our colleagues in Bappenas on how we can also promote a kind of like standard on how we can mainstream the IB approach among the partnership program that we have already in Indonesia to support the implementation of IB approach in different aspects of building relationship, business relationship basically, B2B relationship between small and medium enterprises and large enterprises. There are many opportunities where the references we can use, whether the study or the ASEAN framework for IB or the guidelines that ASEAN already launched. And we also referring to our existing standard national, Indonesian national standard on CSR. Because this also, CSR is part of the IB, and on how we can improve the responsible company to become more engaged in building the partnership with MSMEs.
All right, okay, thank you very much for your insight. I think this is connected to the questions that I would like to ask to Tessa as well. So we have one of the unicorn of Indonesia here. So basically connected to that explanations, on the IB approach, and having these big companies as well to involve and participate. What do you respond, basically, Tessa, on the elaborations from Pak Teguh, from the Bappenas? But at the same time, I see that Sandy is one of the big unicorn in Indonesia, right? And I believe that there are many MSMEs using your platform already. And my next question is also how this platform has benefited MSMEs in Indonesia, or probably you are also doing some expansions in ASEAN as well.
Yeah, I think those are really good questions. Look, when it comes to getting SMEs to participate in the digital industry or digital ecosystem, I think it's really important that everybody in the ecosystem really contributes, right? Because it cannot just be a Zendit, it cannot just be a Pak Teguh's company or institution, or it can't just be the government. Everybody has to really get involved, right? And what Zendit does, I think for us, we like to say we're building infrastructure in Southeast Asia, right? Much like, say, a batik maker would need logistics, would need to be able to have somebody build roads so that you can deliver the goods. We do this for the digital world, right? If somebody wants to go digital, if an SME or otherwise, what's the first thing they need? It's not an online shop, right? Because now you can sell from Instagram or WhatsApp, right? It's not logistics, right? Number one would be payments, because if you can't make money, why would you even go online, right? I think the number one for any business, right? You need to make money. So really, I think for us, that's been the goal. If we flash back to 7, 8 years ago, digital payments is something that's almost unheard of, even in Indonesia, right? That was a time, by the way, I like to remind everyone, when to order a Gojek, you have to pick up the phone, right? I think we're so spoiled today. By the way, I was speaking to someone who was sitting next to me who was like, I didn't have towels when I was staying with a friend in Jakarta, and I ordered one online and it arrived in 30 minutes. It didn't used to be like this in Indonesia, right? It used to be probably like a week or more to get there. So what we really did was, we shook things up a little bit. We enabled people to sign up on our platform instantly. We enabled all sorts of payments to occur through our platform instantly as well. So we enable other platforms to succeed. Now, when we talk about SMEs, we cannot play alone, Zendit. In fact, we help out other platforms that help SMEs in order to accept payments. Platforms like Maju, I don't know if you've heard that platform, or other platforms like BP who work with warungs, right? Actually, platforms that work with sari-saris in the Philippines, we help them out too. So really, it's like what you're saying, right? There's one part that's about education, then there's another part that's support by non-governmental institution. And when it comes to those kinds of supports, everybody has to try to play their part together.
Okay, so I think you raised an important, points here. I think infrastructures, payment, gateway, I think it is quite important. It is all connected, right? So when you try to buy something, then you need these infrastructures. And thanks to your initiative as well at Sendit. And how do you see that those players, like the governments, MSMEs and other players, even like us, the ASEAN institutions, so that everyone could be in the same page in terms of supporting each other for the inclusive business. What role could everyone play? You touch a little bit on that, and probably if you want to elaborate further.
Yeah, definitely. So I think I talked about the private sector a lot, and I think maybe that's a bit obvious, right? We can help SMEs accept payments. We can help SMEs sell online, right? We can help SMEs reach more audience, right? That's what the Tokopedias of the world does, right? It enables whoever is making something, suddenly you have, most Indonesians, I think, who use Tokopedia can look at your goods. But I think for an SME to be able to go digital successfully, or to have a successful business, it can't be just that. For example, I've been chatting with this one batik maker called Ulurwiji, right? I asked her, hey, what are your pain points? Is it actually payments? What are your issues? She's like, well, I can be very creative. I know how to make my product. I know my product is good, but I'm lacking in a few things, right? I need someone to teach me how to manage my money, right? I need someone to teach me, like, okay, if I want to export, how do I get to exporting something, right? So there's a big part on SME education that needs to be done, and it needs to be government institutions as well as non-governmental institutions who are doing that work, right? So that's really important. We talked about private, and we talk about that role, and then the third part would be for the government is for regulators, right? Indonesia has been very, very fortunate in having many, many startups come up in the past maybe 7, 8 years, and I think that's fantastic for SMEs as well, because with the kinds of innovation startups can make or can give, then SMEs have, they find better audience, or they have more tools than ever now to be able to manage their business, right? From a regulatory perspective, then it's very important for regulators to continue supporting startups, right? Through things like Sandbox or other means, because startups need to be able to innovate. When we innovate, it means we bring something new in the market, right? Whether it be, now there's everything from new loan products to new insurance to new payment methods, right? We need to still have that room to play. Therefore, for regulators, it's important to support us startups as well to be able to continue to do that, so we can continue to give new products that are beneficial for the SMEs.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, I think I jot down like capacity building is quite important for our MSMEs, and also, of course, regulations are there. I think with ASEAN coming up, an inclusive business term, and this approach, if we need to pull off this approach, then I think the regulations need to be there as well. So we talked about the government perspective, and then from the company perspective as well. So I would like to hear more from the practitioner perspective. I would like to start with with Kuhan Pati. So you're there, right, Kuhan?
Yes, I am.
All right. Okay. So I would like to start with you. So, as one of the, I would say, the founder of the business as well, I think you are one of the awardee ASEAN Inclusive Business, right, in 2021. So, how do you think that this ASEAN initiative to give you recognitions that benefited your company, especially in your visibility, your branding? So how do you see this help with your company, and how do you see that what can be done maybe more in ASEAN so that it can help you amplify even your work to make more impact?
All right, thank you so much. And first and foremost, a very wet afternoon greeting from Kuala Lumpur. And thank you to ASEAN for hosting me. So answering to Park's question, right? So we started off as a social enterprise in Malaysia sometime in 2015, and that has given us an added advantage where we have struck a very good balance between economic and also social empowerment. Now, as a social enterprise, of course, the entire infrastructure, the entire institutionalization is all a foundation, and it has been set fundamentally. So when we move forward to being an IB or being part of the IB, when we were part of the principal anchor companies to further accelerate the growth of other micro SMEs, then we actually moved up the pyramid. So when we look up the pyramid, we see that the value of the pyramid goes, as we go higher up the pyramid, the value goes higher. But as we go down the pyramid, the number of beneficiaries or the number of target group gets broader. So in that sense, when we got the IB Business Award, it actually got more attention to the both public and also corporates, where then the value got a little bit more higher, where people wanted to engage our social enterprise to procure services and to procure products. Now, the difference here is that because we are now moving up the value chain, then we start to build a supply chain that includes more micro SMEs. I think when it comes to tools, when it comes to digital facilities, infrastructure facilities, Malaysia has a very thriving economic supported by the Ministry of Entrepreneurship. So we leverage on all that and onboard more people to actually be part of our ecosystem. So in that sense, we were able to build an entire ecosystem that supports that growing demand with that exposure that we got from the IB award. And moving forward, if you ask me from my perspective in terms of how can we take it further, I think governments across ASEAN are always looking for partnerships that are not only transactional based, but partnerships that are very real partnerships and trust-based partnerships. And I think social enterprises or inclusive businesses have established that sort of partnership, which is very trust-based with micro SMEs and also our target beneficiaries. And that's how governments and also corporates can turn these IBs across ASEAN as a very good partner to deliver some of their objectives, where they can actually achieve higher transparency and of course higher accountability.
Okay. Thank you very much for highlighting partnership is one of the important elements in inclusive business. I think this is something to note for ASEAN government as well and other ASEAN entities. And you touch upon a little bit on the social impact, right? So since you got more attentions and then you got more work and also you are able to leverage from this award and able to amplify your work. So basically, how do you measure your success? I know that inclusive business not only profit, but also looking into how do you basically do social impact in the community. So how do you measure that social impact, if I might ask?
Yeah, thank you, Pa. I think it's a very brilliant point. In the past, when we worked with quite a few partners, they were very focused on income generation, or they were very focused on dollar value, right? So for every dollar that was invested, how much of additional dollars that we can create among our impact beneficiaries. But I think over time, that has actually it has crossed and gone into a very multi-dimensional aspect. So we no longer only look at dollar values, but how do we measure impact is we measure impact in totality. So we look at a person who is being part of our ecosystem. The first thing is that person has an individual. What sort of transformation are we going to bring over from the time that they be part of our ecosystem, and when they actually move away from the ecosystem to be part, to be independent? The second thing is, of course, income generation is always there. When we set up our IB business, sometimes we set up in groups, which we call it community-based entrepreneurships, and sometimes we set up as individuals. And we have seen income generations reaching almost 1,000% more than how much they entered. And some of them in a month or two can actually generate up to 10,000 US dollars in the F&B space. So that is dollar value, which is very quantifiable. But apart from that, we also look at what sort of financial literacy that we bring to them, what sort of digital literacy. Are we closing the gaps of individuals that are striving to be business persons? And I think as we go on, we also start looking at, are they establishing their business based on the statutory requirements? And if we were to exceed and try to spin them off as individual businesses, how are they going to continue sustaining using the existing food technology or logistic technologies that are available? So for us in Pepper Labs, with the experience that we have gained in social entrepreneurship, we actually have our own impact assessment that takes up about 96 questions that we have developed. There are many tools, I believe, available on the internet or even in the impact space. But leveraging on all these tools and leveraging on all our experience, we've actually built a 96 questionnaire that anyone that comes into the ecosystem has to answer all these 96 questions that comes from even as basic as how is their household condition, what sorts of facilities are they using in their house, are the children having a proper education. So we want to actually look at a more holistic transformation, at the same time a more stronger economic growth or economic advancement. So that is how we approach our impact assessment.
Okay, thank you very much. So one of the highlight, the very important highlight here, I would like to underline is sustainability is very important. So I think, and also we need to look at the change as well. So when we do programs, when you create an initiative, you need to look at what changes are there as an impact, basically, and whether it's income generations or other element that you're looking at. So, okay, so now I would like to ask Sherry. So, talking about the inclusive business, right? So we talked about government perspective on the regulatory as well, some of the pilot business. We talked about the perspective from the companies as well, from Zendit. And I think there are a lot of success story here. There are I think it looks like this one like a smooth implementations of inclusive business. There are many, we are lullaby with this, right? So we talk about good things, but as a practitioner yourself, I think you are there, right, in the field. You are one of the recipient of the IB Business Awardee as well, right, in 2022. So probably if you would like to talk a little bit, what are the obstacles, the challenge that you are facing? And probably it could be a note as well for all of us at how we can do better in the futures in terms of, this inclusive business in your perspective. Yeah.
Thank you, and good afternoon. I hope you're all awake. Yeah, just a wake-up call. Thank you for that eye-opening question. It's always a pleasure to answer the more hidden side of things, But yeah, so Shereza is helping the indigenous peoples, the marginalized farmers in our country, at least in the part where we can reach them at this scale. So we are a social enterprise, which is also an inclusive business. I think that it was mentioned earlier that an inclusive business is different from a social enterprise. But a social enterprise, as a social enterprise, we are trying to address a social problem and at the same time sustain the business and make it profitable and scalable enough so we can help more communities, right? And that is not really an easy thing to do. It's like doing two difficult tasks of an NGO, a CSO, and a business at the same time. That in itself is a very big challenge for us. And it will be fairly easy if we only focus on making profit. Then it will be easier to scale up. But if you are really committed to the social cause of your social enterprise, then you will have to be willing to tie up your priorities to the needs of the people we are trying to help. And that is actually, we are slowly growing, but slowly because we prioritize helping the communities that we are trying to empower, not just by dole-outs. So the empowering way of helping a community is also another challenge, because you don't just give them the dole-outs, you don't just give them donations or seeds for farming, you don't give them just equipment. You walk with them every step of the way until they can stand up on their own and be a social enterprise themselves. So the way we try to empower our community partners is by teaching them how to stand on their own and help other communities as well. So, but instead of just focusing the profit to scaling up, in the Philippines, we are, especially in an archipelago facing the Pacific Ocean, we are always battling with natural disasters. Just this past few months, we've been hit by several typhoons, and actually it was exactly the time when we were planning to expand our business into not just a zero-waste store, not just an agri-trading company, but also a chain of restaurants, hopefully. But we diverted the funds to helping the farmers. If only we can also enjoy the incentives and benefits of for example, an NGO or a cooperative, like getting zero interest loans or grants or funding, then it can help propel our initiatives with the communities better without sacrificing the growth of the company as well. So we are really tied up to making sure our partner communities are not left behind. That is a very, very big challenge. And in the Philippines, I think we're still getting there, getting to recognizing inclusive businesses, because we don't have a special registration for social enterprises or inclusive business anyway. But the effect of, maybe I'm going to the next question as well. The effect of being recognized as an inclusive business last year, we really felt more support from our pool of customers. They appreciate businesses that they know are honestly really trying to help our marginalized communities, and we got more support, more sales, because they know that our products are coming from our marginalized communities. What more if there is a push for our countrymen to know more about inclusive businesses, because the term inclusive business is not yet widely recognized by a lot of people. So even though we were awarded last year, only those who can understand the concept of inclusive business were able to appreciate and and incentivize the efforts. But there's still opportunity to put the word out about this.
Okay. Thank you for the insight, though. I think ASEAN, on the right path, basically, to advocate the inclusive business. That's why we are having these activities today. So I think we believe in this, and I believe although we have homework to do, and like social enterprise, for instance, so you don't have this universal, I would say, legality in each country, right? Like in Singapore, probably they are okay in terms of registering social enterprises. They have the extensions of the government organizations that can look into this, but in Indonesia it's a bit difficult, you know. And even for us, you know, we run this social enterprise development program. When we look at the participants of our programs, the legality, some of them like the company, but the vision and missions, they are doing social. So I think it's quite ambiguous, right? And also, but I think the vision and missions is quite important as well, and that's what you exist, right? Okay, so now we heard from the speakers already in terms of their perspective and insights. And I would like to basically invite the audience, if you have any questions that you would like to discuss with us, and if you have any comments on the inclusive business. This is a new trend in ASEAN, so people are learning about it, and some practitioners are here. So yeah, I would like to call probably 3 people to comments, you know, questions. So if you ask a question, you also can address to specific speakers as well. Yeah. So anyone, any taken? Okay, one lady over there. So if someone can give her a microphone, do we have can we give a microphone? To the lady that sit on the second row on the left, from our left, yeah.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. My name is Eri. I come from ASEAN Solidarity Economic Council, a hub of the social enterprise and cooperative who promoted the social solidarity economy principles. My questions is, today our discussion here is more about from the perspective of social enterprise, but I heard from the moderators and the first speakers that our challenge actually, how can we bring the corporate or company to more inclusive business. If we are talking about social enterprises, I think it is understandable because the missions of their company already mix between the prosperity and the social missions. But I have just looking to the Google, not to the internet, that actually I'm welcome that now the government try to measure as well with the inclusive development, not only in the national but as well in the provincial and the local level. So if I see here, in Indonesia the case, among the 10 highest district and municipalities with the highest rank of the inclusive development index, and the Denpasar, Bali, is on the 10th. Yeah, I guess it will be the first, because I know that Bali is what you call it is prominent or dominated with the wealth, what you call it, tourism business, which characterized could be more absorb the small industries, home workers, and so on. But it's wonder that actually that the Denpasar is the 10th in the Indonesian's index. But if I see the criteria of the index development in Indonesia, I don't see the value of the social. That means I just more see on the economic distributions, but with the value of the like gender and then maternity and so on. I don't see this. Might be the speaker from Bapenas can help us to more understand about this measurement. Might be because my question as well, how can we start to mainstreaming the inclusive business to the company? It should be start from the policy or should be start from the market? So this is as well my questions. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. An interesting questions which Pak Teguh can also respond, and also I think Tessa also will be able to give a view on the inclusive business, whether we start from policy or market, since you are all players, and Sherry and Guan as well, if you would like. So who wants to respond first? Pak Teguh? Yeah.
Thank you, Bailey, for the question. The index for inclusive development is aimed at highlighting several indicators, several economic indicators that can explain on how the economic efforts, development effort for each province can result in a more inclusive and sustainable development. This index has been developed recently, and I think your highlights is important on how this index can also be improved to also include the social aspect, more social aspect into the consideration of on how economic development can be implemented. Bali, in particular, if we are looking into Bali, especially after the COVID-19 pandemic, Bali was hardly hit by the pandemic because they are only rely on tourism. This is dangerous for any economy that only rely on one sector only, meaning that there are gaps in developing other potential sectors, meaning that it's not inclusive yet. Yeah, so it's not fully inclusive. Maybe in tourism, but not in agriculture and other opportunities that are actually available for the community to participate. So the index would like to inform every stakeholders that maybe you need to diversify. Yeah, the 10 rank actually is good. Yeah, it's already good at the best 10 among the 34, previously 34 provinces in Indonesia. Meaning that maybe the Gini ratio in Bali is quite low, meaning that everyone is happy, meaning with the level of income they have. Although it's not as high as the income maybe in Java or is Kalimantan or Riau, but they have the same perception on what is life, what is a better life in Bali. So this have been also captured by the index. But I agree with you, further improvement for the index is important to provide a more overarching approach on economic development. And if you are asking whether we would like to start from market or policy, sometimes if we started from policy, it doesn't work. Yes.
It's like a chicken and egg.
It's like chicken and egg. We have the opportunity to try. Yes, we can try. We can test. We have we can have the pilot and then try to refine the pilot based on our monitoring and evaluation. But we need to work together. As Tessa and also Cherry mentioned, that we need to collaborate. The government cannot do by itself. So we need private sectors, we need NGOs, we need also research and development institutions to complement our efforts in making sure that the pilot that we have can be scaled up, can be replicated, and can be, at the end, can result in a viable business and viable and sustainable business venture.
Thank you for the response, Pak Teguh. So Tessa, if you have any thought on this. Yeah.
So it's interesting because you said it cannot start from policy first, and coming from the private sector, where obviously our main goal, whether a startup or a big corporate player, our main goal is always profit. So I think there is some push probably for inclusivity, but at some point in time, the goal may not always converge, right? So I think there's some part of policy, I think that's super important. For example, I think I'm hearing from some other startups that Alphamart, mini marts are now being asked to carry some SME products. That has to come from policy, and that's super duper important because maybe for mini mart players, that's not always the most profitable, that's not always the most efficient, but it drives a very different goal, right? So I think I agree with Pak Teguh, it has to be a collaboration. I think that there's some part where regular government needs to enforce or to push, to encourage us, right? Maybe giving incentives or something of the sort for us to be able to be more inclusive. And I think there are parts for startups like us to play, because I think, look, the reason why I moved from corporate and joined a startup or started a startup is because startups can be for a mission. Startups, a lot of us are dreaming big, but a lot of us also want to change the world, and I think it's super important, right? But we can't rely on individuals to sort of be benevolent, right? So therefore, I think there's a huge part for government and regulators to play. But I think, again, it's not one or the other. It has to be a collaboration of everyone coming together to enable people to come into, the economy and the likes, yeah.
Okay, thanks for your insight. I think join a consortiums to basically, pulling off this inclusive business. I think it's something that we could think of as well. So, Kuhan or Sherry, if you have any thought of, if not, I will just give another questions to audience. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sherry, yeah.
Kuhan? Okay. It really rang a bell. Policy or market? Policy is good if the implementation is right there beside it, but it's nothing if there's no implementation, right? And how do we convince our policymakers and the executive part of our government to push for it? It's to have proof of concept. So I think it has to be side by side. Have the proof of concept so the policy becomes stronger and, based on real life and what needs to be, more encompassing. I don't know how to do that. I'm not a policy maker, but I think that's one way to go. To, little by little, build up on both sides. For example, Shereza is one of the advocates of community-supported agriculture in the Philippines. We are not the pioneer, but we saw one of the pioneers, and we saw that community-supported agriculture model is really helping in reaching out the marginalized and connecting them to the customers and the clients and the consumers, unlike the typical trade in agriculture, which is from the small farmers, then they are at the mercy of the traders, layers of middlemen, and then the end consumer. Now, in community-supported agriculture, we try to break that, just minimize the middlemen, and try to involve different institutions, like academic institutions, government, NGOs, LGUs, to help each other learn more about the system and educate our youth, our government, through agriculture. And before, it was a concept that wasn't that is not very familiar, that our government is not very familiar. But now that there's a proof of concept, our schools, universities are now trying to embrace and advocate for it as well. So, and now they are trying to embed it in the curriculum and into maybe in the academic policies as well. I'm not sure in the government, but maybe it could be the way to go, proof of concept and then policy, build up on it.
Okay, so I think it's interesting, and thank you, Sherry, for sharing your thought as well. So I would like to give one more questions to the audience. If you have questions to the speakers, is there any more questions from the audience? Comments? All right. So okay. So then I think since we are at the end of the discussions already, so I think we discussed a lot already today on the inclusive business. One of the trend, I think we discussed on the government's regulatory, perspective, and also some of the practitioners' opinions as well, and also from the company perspectives as well. So probably before we end the discussions, probably what is your key takeaway, from our discussions today, from the speaker side? What are you recommendations and future onward that we need to look at how to groom this inclusive business in the future? Probably who wants to start first?
I'll start.
Pak Teguh always take the first.
Yeah. Thank you, Pak Mudi. I think for the government is to understand about the ecosystem that we have. In Indonesia, we do have some programs related to SME developments, cooperative developments, partnership development, and we try to find the place for inclusive business within these different agendas. Yeah, and we have thematic, for example, the wellness, inclusive business in wellness tourism, maybe in some other parts as well, and how this can be applied, particularly relevant for Indonesia, that we are now preparing the next 5 years plan. Yeah, so for the medium-term development plan, I think it is important for us to revisit again the concept of inclusive business on how we can improve the quality of the result from our program related to SMEs development, cooperatives, village development, and to link with the, to have more evidence that can be used by the government to provide the proof of concept, yeah, so that the policy that we roll out later on can work in the market. So that's and one thing, we would like also to recognize the engagement of private sectors, because this is important to attract as many as possible private sectors that work with the government in providing solution for the community and people at the bottom of the pyramid.
Okay, thank you very much, Pak Teguh. So next, who wants taken? Okay, Tessa. Yeah.
Maybe we'll just go in order. If we're
Always
last,
is,
like,
always
whew.
is order. It's
Sorry.
like ASEAN, right? ASEAN is always alphabetical.
Yeah,
order.
yeah. Actually, what I'm learning a lot today is this, that there's a lot of willingness, right? There's a willingness from the government, there's willingness from private sector, there's a willingness from players to be able to help out many different parts of the economy. Actually, what I've learned most today also is that maybe we need to communicate more, right? If we talk a lot about policy not translating to reality, and that really resonates, because even for us, a payment player, one policy might have unintended consequences on the ground if we don't talk to all the players, right? We've definitely felt that a little bit. So I think communication is key. There seems to be willingness in all parties. We're all sitting here today and we care about building an inclusive economy. So it's a matter of how do we understand one another? How do we work together to be able to get to the finish line? How do we agree on some goals, right? I think I'm at a startup, I do operations, so I like to be practical. The word execution, you know, you had me at execution, that's something that resonates, obviously, because if you don't execute, nothing's ever gonna happen, right? So I think then, yeah, it's about talking together, agreeing on the goal, and then going at it bit by bit, small steps at a time.
Okay, that's very important. One step at a time. Okay, so next, wants to start Kuan? Yeah.
Okay, all right. So I think from my angle would be the participation of public sectors or corporate sectors. Because, for instance, I think to a certain extent, governments today we are even gathered here because governments have actually come together to support these ecosystems. So in Malaysia, we have an agency called SME Corporation Malaysia, and also the Ministry of Entrepreneurship. To a certain extent, have introduced a lot of policies, including tax deductions and tax exemptions for corporate sectors to support social enterprises and IB. But I think the next phase here would be for large corporates to start looking at IB as partners to achieve their ESG goals. Because these days we see many corporates are still struggling to find solutions for their ESG goals and to map their ESGs. And one way that we have done over here in Malaysia is that we have actually reached out to some corporates to tell them, hey, why don't you partner up with some IBs that are proven and some SEs that are proven, because then we can share impact together, and that would also meet your goals that you have set to achieve your ESG targets. So I feel large corporates across ASEAN can actually support one another, because most corporates have actually headquarters and also branches across ASEAN countries. And this is where we can actually cut across borders to support one another. And of course, support the government aspirations in terms of their thriving policies. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kuhan, and last, Sherry.
Yep, pressure on speaking the last. I will tie up all their last say. It is really an eye opener to hear from the government that they are very willing to work with the private sector. It feels different to hear that from the government itself, because we can always think about, oh, our government doesn't think about us, but they do. It's just that there's no communication about it. And even the corporations, the public sector, private sector, and the huge corporations, or the small ones, even the MSMEs, or even the marginalized communities, we actually want to work with each other, but we don't know that we do. And we don't know how, because we don't communicate. We don't have like a single platform to communicate. So if there will be a solution to tie everything and communicate in one platform, I don't know if it will be a digital platform, if there's a social media or like platforms like hers, or other something that is that where we all know that when we go to that platform, we can communicate with the government, with private sectors about this, about not just inclusive business, about working together towards a common goal. Then that would be great. That's it.
Okay, I think you sum up all of these, key takeaways for today's discussions. And I would like to thank our speakers today who actively participate in the discussions. And also thanks, Kuhan, for attending from Kuala Lumpur. All the best to you. So, yes, I think please give a round of applause to our speakers for today's discussions. Yeah. So probably we should have a photo ops together.
The first panel discussion. Please give applause once again, ladies and gentlemen.
Hello, good afternoon. I hope you still have some energy with us. It's the last session, but we had a very nice start, and I would like to, welcome the other speakers at this session, and I would like to invite to the stage Mr. Rituden Makip, Deputy CEO of the SME Corp from Malaysia. As well as Mr. Tanawud Supangkarata from the Head of Social Enterprise Development and Promotion Department of Office of Social Enterprise in Thailand. Thank you very much for joining us. We have my colleague, Ms. Tiana Bull, who is joining us online from Paris, and she is Head of Governance and Multilateral Relations at the RBC Center of the OECD. I hope you can hear us, Tiana. Yes, great. Please welcome Tiana. And we also have another speaker, Mr. Vanaseng Unalong, who is a director from the SME Planning and Statistics Division from DOSMEP in Lao PDR, but he's still present at the high-level meeting, so he will join us once he is available in a few minutes. But I think we can start. Please. As it was kindly mentioned, the session today is really looking at a variety of the approaches the governments can take into place in order to promote inclusive business. In some cases, inclusive business could be supported through direct strategies, but then there are a whole range of other elements that could further support development of inclusive businesses, and those could be wide range SME support mechanisms. So today, as I mentioned, we have several distinguished speakers, and I'm very happy because three of them represent the government at different levels of policy development for inclusive business, and we have a person working a lot with the governments, but also with the private companies on RBC. So maybe very briefly to introduce you, Mr. Ritadin Makib, who is a Deputy CEO of the SME Corp Malaysia. So you've been working for the SME Corp for a number of years, and SME Corp is a very important agency in Malaysia because it has a central coordination role under the Ministry of Entrepreneur Development. Prior to that, Mr. Makib worked for many years in the financial sector and was the Vice President of Channel Management at a large bank in Malaysia. He has a Bachelor in Management Studies from University of Waikato, Hamilton, New Zealand, and has been working with a number of international organizations and working groups over the last few years. Please, the second speaker is Mr. Tanawut Supangkaratana, Head of Social Enterprise Development and Promotion Department from the Office of Social Enterprise Promotion of Thailand. Mr. Tanawut has been working on promoting social enterprises in the country, and as you know, the office has been established in 2019, and a number of interesting initiatives in Thailand have taken place. But more interestingly, that before joining this role, Mr. Tanawut has also been leading his own social enterprise for over a decade. So he has double hats, on one side being a practitioner, on the other side being a policymaker. Ms. Tiana Bull, who is a Head of Governance and Multilateral Relations from the RBC Center, and who has been my colleagues, has been working closely with the governments and is part of the OECD Center for Responsible Business Conduct. She also supports the working of the Working Party on Responsible Business Conduct, which oversees a variety of instruments that the OECD has developed. For example, the OECD guidelines for multinational enterprises on responsible business conduct and related instruments. And before joining the OECD, Ms. Tiana has been working in Technology Center and was working on trade with the US International Trade Commission in Washington. She holds an MA in Law and Diplomacy and BA in Mathematics. And finally, Mr. Vanna Singh, who will join us a bit later, I will present him right now as well. For over 10 years, he has been working at DOSMEP, the Department of SME Promotion in Lao PDR, and is currently a director for SME Planning. He has been working in a number of projects, and what is interesting is that he is also been implementing a number of these projects, working closely together with the SME, so he has this practitioner side as well. And he has a degree in economics and a master in marketing from the university in Australia. Well, we have good, very solid speakers today, and maybe just a few minutes before I pass the floor to the speakers to give an overview. As you know, the ASEAN followed very closely the G20 framework for promotion of inclusive business. And this framework foresees a number of approaches for the implementation of inclusive businesses. So when we say inclusive business, we mean many things. One of them is that one of the approaches is through implementation of the inclusive business models, where the poor are integrated into the company's activities as distributors, producers, or suppliers. But then there are two other approaches, and one of these approaches is focused on IB activities, which is very closely related to the way the companies work with the CSR strategies, responsible business conduct, and that's why these activities are very important and relevant. And the third one is through the social enterprise initiatives. Typically, social enterprises are much smaller entities, but if they grow, they can also make a big impact and promote this social enterprise approaches and scale them to the inclusive business models. That's why, precisely, when we were speaking about this session, we refer to elements related to social enterprise promotion, RBC practices, but also general support mechanisms on promoting links with larger companies, multinational companies, and supporting SMEs development in general. Well, with this, maybe let me start, because Mr. Rutaden has actually developed a very interesting presentation on how to promote inclusive business value chain and in Malaysia. And this value chain is something that we speak a lot, quite a bit, because that's where, you know, ASEAN is a hub of a factory of the world these days. But how we can make this approaches much more easily implemented. And I guess this is a good example that might interest quite few policymakers in the region. So with this, I would like to ask you, tell us more about this, please.
Thank you so much, Max. First and foremost, thank you, Kemenkop, for your very great hospitality and bringing me into the beautiful island of Bali. Thank you so much. Thank you to OECD and UNESCAP. Max, I think in the spirit of this afternoon, sometimes we need to spice this session ahead. So if you are okay, allow me to basically stand up just for my session, because I would like to do some presentation. So let's see if I can have my slide, please. Just an information, I come from SME Corporation Malaysia. So basically, we look after the development of SME in Malaysia. We are under the Ministry of Entrepreneur and Cooperative Development. And let's say if you look in terms of my slide, I'm going to present a little bit in terms of this inclusive business value chain development initiative, bridging inclusive community into the mainstream economy. Max basically asked me, Rich, you only have like 5 to 7 minutes. Don't go overboard. All right? Okay. So when you talk about inclusive business, we are in Malaysia, basically inclusivity has always been a key principle for the national socio-economic development agenda and a fundamental goal of our national plan. So this is where we partner with UNESCAP, we partner with OECD in terms of coming out with the study on inclusive business. How to go about this inclusive business? Not many people understand, Max, with regards to this inclusive business. So when we receive this kind of fundamental kind of study, we work together with our ministry, and in 2021, basically we devised and implemented a plan, a strategy to address this inclusive business. So in one sense, basically, we are targeting a groups of including micro enterprises and inclusive communities, such as the bottom of the pyramids. That's number one. Number two, we are looking in terms of the activities including IB advocacy and promotion. I think during the previous session, people asked us, what can the government do? Is it the policy or is it the implementation first? Number three, when we do this, basically we do, I mean just now you said about the role model, so we do a pilot in terms of this value chain development initiatives. So this is a very important, because for us to really understand the adoption, the acceptability of the corporate people, as well as the commitment and the passion of the inclusive communities into this overall supply chain. That's number one. Number two, these are the clear differences between all these kind of model. We talk about philanthropy, we talk about CSR, we talk about social enterprises, we talk about the mainstream commercial, as well as the inclusive business. So from this diagram, you can see that when you talk about inclusive business, it must come with the business activity, together with which are basically driven by the impact of the return and vice versa. So this is very important for us to really understand what inclusive business is all about. Number three, when we design inclusive business model, so I always argue with my team, so when you want to design, do you want to follow the policy? Do you want to follow just the framework, or do you want to follow the guideline? So here is very much why we name it value chain, because at the end of the day, we want to have a growth driver, which we categorize them as the IB principal companies. These are very high growth companies, highly innovative companies, offer high skill employment and so forth. Then we're also looking after the growth enabler. These are the micro enterprises, the social entrepreneurs who can basically become inclusive business themselves. And at the end of the day, we would like to have a shared prosperity, which require more inclusive approach to economic growth. The private sector can play a bigger role to create a prosperous and economically inclusive society, as well as to address inclusion challenges. At the end of the day, when we talk about this IBVCDI, it's a potential to address the micro enterprises as well as the inclusive communities. We are looking in terms of the principal IB companies who basically can support and understand the principle of inclusive business, as well as we are coming from the government, what kind of the facilitation that we can support in terms of this inclusive business to the principal IB companies or the anchor, like my Insinyur Kuruhan mentioned earlier, as well as the inclusive communities. So at the end of the day, when we design this program, we are trying to search for companies who has a potential among SMEs and large corporations that adopt the IB model. We also try to search from the social enterprises who can basically become one of the inclusive business kind of company. And we are trying to facilitate the various form in terms of dedicating towards the inclusive community directly. And these are type of intervention would require, for example, we name it market access, capacity building, digitalization, training, starter kit, and so forth. So when we design this, at the end of the day, we are trying to find a companies that has the capable of implementing capacity building, that's number one, that can provide mentorship and coaching. We are trying to find a company that has a high growth and innovative, export-oriented, able to integrate the bottom of the pyramid into the value chain, as well as committed to buy back from the community at a higher market rate. So this is very much why we basically has designed the inclusive business such a way. Sorry, Max, a little bit more. So we have selected 5 principal IB companies on a pilot kind of studies. We have Farm Fresh, who are very much a multinational kind of corporation. We have Serai Amalaya, who are SME themselves, specializing in the medical devices. Then we have Pepper Lab just now, we have Moswell, and last but not least, we have Everlasting Moose. So these are the projects that we have implemented together with our corporate partners. Then we provide them with the necessary intervention, and currently we have around 200. Definitely, they themselves will have so much other projects, but this is what we are doing together with the corporate companies. So as an example, this is just a success story. Serai Malaya, one of the IB principal company. Like I mentioned earlier, the Serai Malaya was established as a vehicle to involve inclusive community. They started with a Star Medic as a medical device kind of companies. Then they branched out, they diversified into Serai Malaya to help the inclusive community in terms of the lemongrass. And under this model, this company has basically invested around 1.6 million to help the communities around the villages to grow and to provide them the necessary capacities in terms of planting the right way of the lemongrass, and at the end of the day to collect back all the lemongrass coming from these villages. They started with the dried slice of lemongrass. They basically brought some of these people to Gulf Food this year or last year, if I'm not mistaken, and they have diversified their product into fine powder, tea, and cube. So this is one of the examples that I must say, Max, that can basically showcase the successfulness of this inclusive business. Next is Pepper Lab. I'm not going to dwell too much. The previous speaker has basically goes into this. This is very much the social enterprise whereby they supported the bottom of the pyramid or the inclusive communities, inclusive the woman, single mother, the youth, as well as the disabled person in terms of this F&B kind of business. Alright, next we have the latest one, the Everlasting Moose. Very much they are trying to help 10 villages, all these communities from the Borneo side of Sabah. So this is what we are facilitating their business in terms of growing, helping these villages, planting all these what we call herbs coming from the Sabah native. At the end of the day, I think what Malaysia has done through our pilot study has bear some fruit in terms of assisting some micro enterprises and inclusive communities. I mean, these are all the people who have received the ASEAN Business Award, and I'm sure tonight we are going to announce the new winners. Right. But what I'm going to tell a little bit more, Max, with regards to this. I think, Ibu, just now you have asked some of the issues, some of the challenges. So I'm going to showcase what we learned from our pilot studies. Number one, it would require a whole ecosystem approach. When we talk about this, you need to have an enabling ecosystem, you need to have a conducive ecosystem, and you need to have an integrated kind of ecosystem. The next slide will showcase what that kind of enabling ecosystem means. So basically, in terms of implementing this IB, some people on theoretical might feel easy, but when you want to implement based on certain business model, different business model might face different kind of challenges. So it would require individual refinement and targeted transformation. Sometimes when we approach to the inclusive communities, we thought that they may have the same issues. It's not. There's no one size fits all. When we work together with Everlasting Moose, then we need to really understand the challenges faced by our colleague in Sabah. When we work with Pepper Lab, there are different challenges because these are the suburban kind of communities. So you need to refine in terms of your targeted transformation to this individual, be it in terms of their journey of entrepreneurship or understanding the various platforms of becoming an entrepreneur themselves. Number 3, short-term 6 months with compressed milestone. This is very much interesting because you need to incorporate all the capacity building and integrating them into the supply chain. If not, it won't become inclusive business itself. It will become maybe a social enterprise or just a CSR by that companies. Number 4, a target group should be larger. Of course, we started with a small kind of communities, but in order for us to have a bigger impact, definitely we need to have a bigger pool of beneficiaries. That's number 4. Number 5, we also need to do a lot of advocacy. We need to sell the ideas to the various corporate communities, to the various GLCs, for them to basically buy all these products coming from these IB principal companies. At the end of the day, in order for us, we recognize inclusive business as a prospect to contribute and complement policies and programs supporting SME growth. However, a conducive and integrated IB ecosystem is crucial for inclusive growth and empowering the bottom of pyramid or inclusive business. Number 1, there are 5 key success factors. Number 1, we are talking about technological adoption and modernization. At the end of the day, how can we shift this manual processing to overcome the rules or the issues related to inefficiency and low productivity? Number 2, we are talking about access to financing, on how we can bring all these financial institutions, the alternative of financial, as well as the investment coming into these companies, be it into the companies or the beneficiaries themselves. Number 3, we also have to continuously do the capacity building. When you talk about capacity building, you talk about the transformation, you talk about mentoring, you talk about coaching, and you talk about continuous communication. Because in order for them to really understand what this entrepreneurship and inclusive business are all about, you need to have a thorough and continuous kind of advocacy. Number 4, which is very important, without this, nothing will what we call prevail. Because at the end of the day, you need to provide them with the necessary market access. There's no point for a company like Everlasting Moose buying all the ginger or the lemongrass from the Sabahan, and in actual fact, they couldn't sell it, or they couldn't diversify the products. So at the end of the day, we also need to help, as a government agency, we also need to help the companies as well as the various inclusive communities. Number 4, we also need, last but not least, we also need to talk about the research and development, because at the end of the day, we also need to get the necessary support from the various stakeholders for us to lend our hand, to basically improvise their knowledge and skills to support the overall ecosystem about the inclusive business. Thank you so much, Max. I hope it's not that fast.
Thank you very much. I really like this example because, when we sometimes are very timid about trying. So this is an example where we try different things. And sometimes we can fail, but sometimes we can find something which can work very well. And that's what I really like about this initiative. I really hope also that we'll have a very nice discussion. So I would invite all the speakers to already prepare the questions. We had some slides, but if you have some questions, please start thinking about them, and we will have some time definitely to ask the speakers about them. I also invite even the online participants, because we have some online participants to also don't be shy and prepare some of the questions. So thanks a lot, and I'm turning to Mr. Tanawut from the Social Enterprise Office in Thailand. Could you please tell us a little bit more about how Thailand addresses the issues and which policies you implement in order to support, which could support inclusive business?
All right. Thank you, Max. So may I introduce myself again? My name is Tanawut from the Office of Social Enterprise Promotion, Thailand. So let me introduce about the office a little bit. So the Social Enterprise Promotion Office is established under the Social Enterprise Promotion Act 2019. So we have 3 missions. The first one, we are the organization to register the social enterprises, and after they register already, we have to like promote and support them to be strengthen their business to get high competitive in the market. And the last one, we are an academic unit to research about the social enterprise in Thailand. And now talk about the number of the certified social enterprise in Thailand. We have 248 social enterprises that will be like 22.5% profit sharing among the shareholder, and another type 77.5% they are non-profit sharing among the holder. Okay, and as you talk about the accreditation in Thailand, as we have the Social Enterprise Promotion Act, so the social business who would like to be certified under the act, so there will be like 5 main criteria to be certified as a social enterprise in Thailand. The first one is like they have to being a juristic person, not less than a year. For example, like term of the registered business, foundation, cooperative, association is possible. The second one, having the social purpose to solve the problem of the community, social or environment. The third one, the revenue, like more than 50% of the revenue might be from the sales goods or products, because the act don't want the income from like the donation or responding things, something like that. And the fourth one is like using not less than 70% of the profit for the social purpose, or they can reinvest in their business. And the last one is like having a good governance. Exactly. Yeah, that is like our accreditation, or how we can describe the social enterprise in Thailand under the Social Enterprise Promotion Act.
Thank you very much, because I think it's really relevant, especially, there will be a dedicated session on accreditation. But as you have heard today at the opening remarks, Director Land from the ASEAN Secretariat mentioned that maybe having an ASEAN accreditation system would be maybe something that we can consider. And indeed, why not? Because if we have the same rules, the same accreditation methods, I guess that the one of Thailand is very interesting to consider.
All right, thank you.
Right? Okay, well, I will have some other follow-up questions on that, but maybe a bit later.
Right.
But meanwhile, I wanted to pass the floor to Ms. Tiana Bull. Tiana, a warm welcome to Paris from Bali. It's an early morning there. You work with a number of governments. Can you please share with us some of your experience of some of what the RBC Center of the OECD has been doing with the governments, and how this could also maybe support the inclusive business approaches? Do you hear us? Okay. I think you can speak, because we don't hear you.
Perfect.
Okay.
No, thanks, Max. I think it just took a bit of time to get me unmuted. Thanks very much, and good afternoon, everyone. I really regret not being able to be there with you in person, but it is a pleasure to contribute today, even if virtually. The main point that I want to leave you today with is that there would be significant benefits of connecting efforts to develop IB frameworks or capacity building for MSMEs with broader efforts to mainstream inclusiveness and sustainability in the economy, to promote responsible investment and responsible business conduct more widely. We heard quite a lot in the previous panel around how important it is to actually connect with larger companies to be able to understand what are the needs and how to actually internationalize in a way that makes sense. So maybe just a quick word for those who may not already be aware. The OECD is home to one of the main international instruments on responsible business conduct, or RBC for short, which I'll be using throughout today. And they are the guidelines for multinational enterprises on responsible business conduct. Together with the UN guiding principles on business and human rights, as well as ILO instruments, these instruments really set out a framework for what constitutes responsible business in the global economy across relevant areas such as environment, corruption, human rights, etc. And importantly, these expectations are already integrated in policies, including by ASEAN itself, but also by individual ASEAN member states. So we're not really starting to from scratch when we're trying to think about how to connect the IB framework development and capacity building with some of the more broader efforts to mainstream sustainability and inclusiveness in the economy. OECD has also, over the last decade, hasn't just been focused on the what, but also the how, really, and to really try to help businesses and other stakeholders, and businesses of all sizes, I should say, actually implement these expectations. So, for example, how do you actually undertake due diligence for your supply chain? How do you prioritize which impacts to focus on? And for all of the corporate governance people in the room, well, I want to highlight that importantly here, the focus on impact is focus on impact on people and the planet, so not just on the company itself. So when it comes to MSMEs under RBC standards, SMEs are expected, like other businesses, to behave responsibly and carry out due diligence to identify and respond to their impacts, including negative impacts. However, there is a recognition that they may face challenges in implementing this due diligence. So that's why you will see, if you open these frameworks, is that the guidelines, the OECD guidelines, recognize that the nature and extent of due diligence should be proportionate to the size of the enterprise, and then call on larger enterprises to engage with SMEs in their supply chain through training and other forms of capacity building. So I'm lucky to be coming after the CEO of SME Corp Malaysia, because he spoke quite a lot about that. So why does this matter? Well, you all are aware that as to how wide SMEs are in the economy. So application of these standards is important for society at large, considering the percentage of SMEs in our economies, but it can also provide value for SMEs themselves, right? And the most obvious example would be for retaining or gaining access to global markets and integrating into the supply chain. And we've seen, and SMEs have reported to us, that the execution of due diligence on these environmental and social issues is in some cases already demanded by the market. So we are hearing that they're increasingly faced with demands from larger companies to ensure that their supply chains are compliant, quote unquote, with environmental, anti-bribery, social, or human rights regulations, industry initiatives, and other standards. And from a policymaker perspective, one thing that is always on the minds of policymakers that we work with is how do you make sure that SMEs do not face undue cost burdens, for example. And there's also other practical issues with that, such as, for example, even screening the regulatory environment and dealing with the lack of harmonization of standards or parallel or overlapping standards is challenging for SMEs. And I'm thinking here in particularly in relation to auditing and certifications, and those can even be more pronounced when SMEs are self more than one buy. At the same time, there are some characteristics of SMEs that may actually facilitate implementation of these wider sustainability or inclusiveness initiatives. For example, I mean, the agility and adaptiveness of the organizational culture of smaller enterprises is really an added value there. I'll stop here, Max, because I know we're going to get to the specific policy examples, but I'll just end with the point is that policy really can make a difference here in bridging this gap. And really in two different ways. First, when designing policies, be they RBC or IB or just general supply chain upgrading or industrial policies, we've seen what makes difference is to build proportionality into designs of these policies with challenges of MSMEs in mind. And then in order to be able, again, to address those challenges, to have a coherent and efficient complementary measures in place. And I'll get to that in the second part of our discussion. Thanks very much.
Thanks a lot, Tiana. Very interesting. I remind people that you will have a chance to ask questions, and I hope you started penciling them down already. We're also very lucky because Mr. Vanaseng Onalam managed to come and join our meeting. So I think I already introduced you, so you're very warm welcome. And you're straight under the fire. I will ask you a question because you arrived just in the right moment. Maybe you can tell us a little bit. We're speaking about a variety of policies that the governments can put in place that could also support inclusive business. So they're not specifically focused on inclusive business. We have countries which have different levels of policy frameworks. What is the current status of Laos? Where do you think, what are some of the policies or instruments that your government is putting in place that could also benefit the inclusive business?
Thank you, Max. First of all, sorry that I'm late. Just finished up with the high-level meeting. For the questions, actually, the inclusive business is pretty new for Laos. As you may be aware, the inclusive business in ASEAN just has been adopted back in 2017. Right. Later on, as the SME promotion department under the Ministry of Industry and Commerce, we try to collaborate with the Ministry of Planning and Investment as we learn from other ASEAN countries, let's say from Thailand, from Philippines, that they have the Board of Investment that participating in engaging the inclusive business for the MSME. So for Lao PDR, later on that we, once we develop the MSME development plan 2021-2025, we formulate for 7 policies, so that as the entrepreneur development, access to finance, promote the productivity, technology and innovations, access to business development services, market access and expansion, enabling environment for MSME establishment and operation, and the last one is for the policy on tax, custom and finance. So under the policy number 5 that related to the market access and expansion, we formulate the initiative on including inclusive business promotion in Laos, with the focusing on the measure on the awareness raisings, and also we try to formulate the specific inclusive business policy within next year. And also under the policy number 2 on the access to finance, that we mentioned about put the measure on developing the new financial products for the MSME, that including the green financings and also the financing for inclusive business as well. So far, we are still very in the early stage on promoting the inclusive business in Laos, as well as the policies as well. Due to the, we need to make sure that the stakeholders, especially for the policymakers and also those are in the management level, understand about the importance about the inclusive business.
Okay, well, thanks a lot for this. So some of the initiatives are picking up as well in Laos, from what I hear from that. We will go maybe with one follow-up questions per speaker, and then I will really open the floor to the any questions that are there. And maybe the first follow-up one is it's to you, Mr. Tanaud, because you had very short answer, and I really would like to know more. You mentioned that in Thailand there is an accreditation system in place. We know that it works. And I wanted, if you could maybe share some of the findings from the system and whether you think it can be helpful for inclusive business, and if you believe that through going through the process of accreditation for a social enterprise could be also beneficial for them to be more, to be better prepared, for example, to get into the global value chains, or to be a supplier to a multinational.
All right, thank you, Max. So as I have tell you about the accreditation criteria to be the social enterprise in Thailand, so there will be come together with the incentive. So the first incentive is about the tax incentive. So if that social enterprise they certify as a non-profit sharing among the shareholder, so they can get business income tax waiver. And the second one is like they can get the benefit for the public procurement. Like normally in Thailand, if the value of the project from the government that have the value more than 500,000 baht. I'm not sure how to convert in US. So if the value of the project is higher than 500,000 baht, so every corporate or private sector who would like to work with government have to go through e-bidding process. So, but if you are the certified social enterprise, so the government can be selected directly to work with the social enterprise. Yep. And the third one is like the benefit come with the public waste fund. So normally if the private sector would like to go to the private waste fund, they have to change their company to be like the public company to get into the stock exchange. And if you are the the certified social enterprise, you can do it yourself publicly. Yeah, that is like one of the good incentive that public by the government. The fourth one, they can get to the SE promotion fund. We have like social enterprise promotion fund that have three main objectives. The first one is like the loan with the low interest, if we compare with the financial institute. The second one is like the grant for social enterprise at the seeding stage. And the third one is like for co-project together with the private company or the other government organization who have who would like to promote and support social enterprise accordingly to our action plan as well. And the last one we have the training, coaching, or market access project to help the social enterprises. So those are like the main incentive that we can provide to the social enterprise who are get through the accreditation system. Yep.
Question for you is because actually you have previous experience working in Asia quite a bit, covered quite a few countries. I was wondering if you could maybe suggest some of the more specific advice you can provide.
Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to wake up everyone. Well, sorry. I was suggesting that maybe. So, because you worked in Asia, maybe you can also give some of your views on some of the tools or impactful instruments that you think would be most useful in this context, in ASEAN, based on your work.
Okay. So,
and maybe after that, Tiana will also ask.
Sorry.
Please go ahead.
For Thailand, it's like, I think one of the interesting incentive that I told is like the public procurement benefit, that it might be like the huge market for social enterprise to work together with the government. Yeah, that is like the good opportunity to be certified as a social enterprise. Yeah.
Okay, that's well noted. Thank you very much.
Sorry.
And now on the RBC. I think the speaker is still muted.
Thanks, Max. Indeed, I cannot unmute myself, so thanks to the organizers. My co-panelists provided a perfect lead into answering your question, because there's a lot of actually policy tools that governments can use exactly to do what you mentioned, Max. And I'll just walk through some of them, but this is definitely not an exhaustive list. One thing that really strikes me is actually what also came up in the first panel, is how much still information gap there is particularly for MSMEs that want to internationalize. So studies really have demonstrated that, and experience have demonstrated that SMEs do need and broadly welcome information and training around what is expected of them, because it is very difficult to understand what happens in global markets. So this idea of providing support and help with capacity building, information, and management of these issues is really at the top of my mind when I think about how to answer your questions. And we see that some governments in ASEAN have already started doing that. For example, developing guidance to increase their due diligence, SME awareness around expectations around due diligence, and then understanding their own technical capacity to implement it. There's also a second aspect of that, which is just simply providing information on supply chain traceability and risk. And that is super useful for SMEs to be able to understand where they're exposed to risk. And just as a concrete example that comes to mind is, for example, the consolidation of existing trade and customs data on the origin of raw materials, products, or services, which is easier for the government to do, of course, than each company to collect and obtain such information independently. Then there's quite a lot that governments can do around financing and fostering collaboration. We see special financing instruments for SMEs, for example, with preferable rates for delivering supply chain improvements all over the world, and tax exemption incentives, for example, around introducing and investing in environmental technologies and green practices. And one additional point there that I haven't seen as much be discussed is support for activities of multi-stakeholder or industry initiatives that assist SMEs. And here, SMEs here can in particular benefit from collaboration with industry schemes and multi-stakeholder initiatives. But at the same time, these schemes can be fragmented. It can sometimes be difficult for SMEs to navigate. So the government really can help quite a lot, just to increase leverage, right? To pool knowledge on sector risk solutions, to make due diligence efforts really more efficient. Then there's everything from promoting alignment, and here is promoting convergence of standards and certification requirements, or developing mutual recognition agreements and schemes which could be useful for governments to consider. And then finally, well, we mentioned public procurement, but I would be remiss not to also mention trade policy, commercial diplomacy, trade missions, fairs, export credits, and then generally kind of looking at the intelligence and advice that the government is able to provide for SME internalization. I can't ever say that word. We at the OECD have developed a document, actually, a recommendation for governments on how to think about these interconnected issues. So I'd be very happy to share that with whoever is interested following the panel. Max, I'll stop there, but of course, happy to jump in on specific questions that come up.
Thanks a lot. I think you touched both very relevant points. I just want to highlight that indeed, so far, inclusive business in ASEAN has been relatively fragmented. It was focused on individual countries' frameworks, and I think now with the ASEAN Plan of Action for Inclusive Business for the next 5 years, the whole idea is precisely to leverage this knowledge, to create also a knowledge hub, to share information, to facilitate links between the companies, multinationals, SMEs, and other stakeholders. And with this, maybe I really like this initiative, and I wanted to follow up with that was provided by Mr. Ritaden on the connection with the larger companies. Do you think this initiative could be implemented in the other countries? What would be the starting steps? What would government should start?
Right. Thank you so much, Max. I think, and I believe that we need to take step-by-step kind of implementation. Like us, when we implemented our inclusive business, we have to scout around. A lot of companies would like to do CSR, but they don't really understand what the inclusive business framework is all about, and how it relates to the various inclusive kind of communities kind of development. So during kind of our engagement, we do a lot of advocacy. We basically approach multiple companies, be it from the MNC, from the GLC, as well as the small and medium enterprises, social entrepreneurs included. From that kind of angle, we basically do a lot of information sharing. We basically try to sell the idea of this inclusive business. But at the end of the day, we also need to really understand in terms of the targeted inclusive kind of communities. When we approach one company, we also need to basically facilitate them with that inclusive kind of communities. So at the end of the day, like I mentioned earlier, there's no one size fits all, but definitely, Max, to answer to your question, yes, there is hope. I mean, but of course, we as a government agency, sometimes we have to do a lot more trying to get the necessary buy-in from the various corporate kind of organization, as well as from the targeted inclusive communities.
Okay, it makes a lot of sense. And Vanessa, you're just coming from this high-level meeting. Can you share some findings from it, and maybe also let us know if where do you think lies the largest opportunity for the development?
Thank you, Max. Well, actually, of course, at the high level, we have reasoned about the progress on implementing the promotion of the IB in ASEAN, and we can see that, of course, there are some of different level as well. Let's say, like from the Laos perspective, we are still in the very first stage on the awareness raisings. So, what's from the experience? Actually, once we talk back in the MSME promotion in Laos, right? We started in 2004 until it takes like 7 years to get the MSME promotion law, and until 2016, that the government decided to focus on MSME promotion, so that we can see that 12 years in order to create the awareness for the government to understand the importance of MSMEs. From that, back into 2016, to obtain a business license in Laos, it's taken more than 100 days. Right? But now, because of the government focus more on the MSME promotion, the business license in Laos can obtain within 9 days. So I think that we, even though we start late in Laos, right, but we still have more work to do. We have more opportunity to work on that one. So that's why we put MSME promotion plan that we mentioned that we try to create awareness for the inclusive business among the stakeholders within this 2025, right? The other thing what we have learned from the high level meeting is like some country they have the accreditation system, they have the incentive for the inclusive business that we hope that we can work together very soon, right? I still remember the word from the Minister of Cooperative and MSME of Indonesia, like together as one, we can move forward on that one. So that's why we have the action plans, we have the IB guidelines in ASEAN, and we hope that in the very near future, even before the 2027, that we can see something very new and even like annual progressive on the inclusive business promotion in ASEAN ourselves.
Thank you very much. We have a big sign here saying that 5 minutes left, but it's not true because our session started late. So, and we still would like to get a few questions. I see there is one question from the first table, and then I wonder if there are any questions from the online participants. But maybe it's possible to bring the microphone to table 3, please. I think I see 3, but I might be wrong. Maybe there are several questions. It's good. Maybe we collect the questions, and maybe if you ask a question, suggest to whom you would like to address it, and present yourself, and then we will try to address all of the questions in one go.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. I think the presentation is very impressive. So my question is for Mr. Ritauden and Mr. Tanwood Supong. I believe the Indonesia government already implemented such of policy and facilities, including the capacity building and then the access market and so on. But the fact is, we have a large of number of SMEs. More than 60 million, I believe. But the participation of SMEs in the export performance is very small, less than 10%. I think it's contrary with the condition in Malaysia and Thailand. So I would like to know what is the secret weapon, what is the strategy actually, the secret strategy to successfully include the SMEs in the export performance. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This is a very fantastic question. So this is about SME. Max, I will address in terms of the SME. I believe, Ibu, basically, I think we are almost the same. But at the end of the day, we need to have a very framework of this SME development as well as the inclusive kind of SME development. You started with what Max has mentioned earlier in terms of the regulatory kind of environment. Definitely, we as a government, we cannot enforce it. But definitely we need to facilitate whatever requirement that is needed by the companies themselves. So in Malaysia, basically when you talk about SME development, we always look after, like what my colleague has mentioned in terms of the various pillars. Number one, we always look in terms of facilitating from the regulatory kind of a perspective. How can we make their businesses easier? How can we facilitate in terms of their government procurement? How can we basically help them in terms of match among each other? That's number one. And also, we also like to have a look in terms of the tax incentive and some of the incentive that can be being provided by the government ourselves. So, for example, now a lot of people talk about ESG, about sustainability. We are also trying to provide the necessary leadership. I think that's the key word. As a government agency, sometimes we need to encourage and we need to provide the necessary leadership to the SMEs, because not many people would like, or not many SMEs would like to embark or adopt about the ESG for now. I mean, that's the true fact. But definitely we need to bring them to a certain what we call steps, or to a certain phase, whereby we need to educate them, we need to advocate them. The next thing is basically we need to provide them with the necessary access to financing, be it coming from the development financial institution or the FI themselves. And now we are moving in terms of the alternative of financing. We need to bring them to this alternative financing kind of sphere, so that a lot of companies can be supported through the financing kind of activities. Then definitely we also need to touch base in terms of the market. At the end of the day, let's say if the SME couldn't find the necessary market, then whatever regulatory kind of environment, whatever support that we try to provide, then it will become useless. At the end of the day, we also need to help them and facilitate them to go abroad on how basically they can address the cross-border kind of a transaction in terms of bringing them to the targeted country, not just simply the showcase. So we need to, nowadays basically we are doing something like a targeted approach, whereby we bring and we selected companies who are committed, who are ready to go for the international market. Even for the international market, we don't go for all. Maybe we go for Dubai in terms of F&B. Maybe we go to China in terms of halal. So that's how we do nowadays. Then definitely we also need to continue with the capacity building. At the end of the day, we also need to provide them with the necessary, because when you talk about micro, they need a lot of training in terms of entrepreneurship. When you talk about the small and medium, they may need a lot help in terms of the market access. So that's how we do. There's no one size fits all. It's very much a differentiated kind of approach coming from all these pillars. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Would you like to add anything?
Yeah, like, can I show some example? In Thailand, we got the problem that mostly social enterprises in Thailand, they have know each other. We choose to build more network to that they can help each other, something like that. And for the social enterprise development in Thailand, so we have one mechanism that's quite interesting. We call it social enterprise assembly meeting every year by the ad. So this one is the mechanism that we can hear the problem, is the reflection from the social enterprises that they will raise some problem and try to create the recommendation policy together. And we are, as the government agency, we will try to cover the recommendation policy to connect with the other government agency, or the bigger ministry that they can help or they can support the social enterprises. So I think this one is the mechanism that can solve the problem up to date, because it will be like annual meeting every year, something like that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I've seen there is another question, maybe just a very quick question and very quick answers.
Okay, thank you. My name is Eri again. I come from ASEAN Solidarity Economic Council. Let me learn from about the IB from these discussions. At the first, it confused me to know who are actually the actor of the IB. Yeah, because in our discussions and the first sessions, there is three actors that I have heard. At the first is the big companies, and the second is social enterprise, and then sometimes discussions called the SME. So who are actually the actor that we want to would like to play in this IB? And the second, about the IB sector. In some document as well, our second resource persons has given an example of the IB company. Yeah, what I see is mostly about in the rural, with the agriculture, with the tourism, with the small industries or handicraft and so on. Then I think how is it with the other company to be IB? Like in the mining, in the manufacturing, are they able to be IB as well? Because in the document that I read, in the sharing that you present here, mostly related to the agriculture or tourism. Allow me to learn more about the IB. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Maybe I don't know if someone would like to answer. I can suggest very well. Would anyone like to tackle it? I'm happy to do it, but just in a sense that you refer that indeed today we've spoken about three big actors, about large companies, about social enterprises and SMEs. But inclusive businesses we actually speak about inclusive business models, and all of the sectors can implement those models. It doesn't mean that all social enterprises are implementing inclusive business models. It doesn't mean that all big companies are inclusive business model implementers, but all of them could actually be part of it. What is important is that they bring, in one way or another, the target audience, which is the poorest segment of the population, as distributors, suppliers, or in any other capacity into their business model. I think that's one thing. And then the second question was about the IB sector. It's true that today we speak in general a lot about agriculture and tourism, but IB could be found everywhere. And actually it's interesting because in the previous, if you go to the webpage of the IB Summit, you will see the previous editions of the IB Summits, and you will see that many of them are also in the area of water, in the area of energy, in the area of mining. So it is possible to find IB models spread across everywhere, but it's clear that probably the largest number would be in the area of agriculture because it's the most common. But maybe others would like to add anything into this.
Thank you, Max. Thank you, Max. I just want to add on what Max has mentioned. When you talk about IB, yes, we are talking about the framework, we are talking about the model. So that's why when we implement and design this program in Malaysia, we choose like 5 companies from different kind of category and different sectors. For example, like Farm Fresh, they are basically a Bursa listed kind of companies. So under their kind of arrangement, so we need to see on how best their business model can basically suit into the inclusive communities whereby they are producing milk, and this is where we want to create a home-based kind of entrepreneurs. So when we want to create a home-based entrepreneurs, what else can Farm Fresh, such a big company, can help these entrepreneurs in terms of their training, in terms of the starter kit, as well in terms of capacity building, as well as the market access. Mind you, under this Farm Fresh kind of model, this home-based kind of entrepreneur, how do we measure the impact basically? They basically raise in terms of their income generation from 0, and some of them nowadays become a millionaire. So that's one impact as an example. So when we talk about Serai Malaya started, under their parent company, for example, under the, like I mentioned earlier, like under the medical device. So we basically scout them, we basically try to push them into this inclusive business. So they also need to find an alternative to their current business model. And that's the reason why they established Sarai Malaya. And when they establish Sarai Malaya, they can see the potential about this lemongrass, be it in terms of the dry, in terms of the seasoning, as well as the ingredients. But their challenge are very much in terms of finding the right community that are committed and passionate in terms of growing lemongrass, that basically can meet the quality that they really needed. So at the end of the day, what they are trying to do, together with their investment, they can basically groom this kind of villages into a very high growth kind of producer, buy back from this community and try to basically diversify their products and sell it to the Malaysia kind of market as well as to the international market. So I'll stop there, Max. Maybe my colleague would like to add on. Yeah.
Would you like to add anything? No?
Yeah. Well, actually, once again, like we try to reaffirm, like we are talking about the IB models. Of course, there's a confusion, quite a big confusion between the social enterprise, between the IB itself, between the large enterprise, between the small MSME, let's say, right? So for the case of Laos, we found the IBs a lot in terms of the agriculture and handicraft. That because of 80% of the population of Laos are farmers, right? So that we are more on that one. We have a case like the large enterprise that export the products, vegetable processings to overseas market, and then they're engaging the low-income people to supply the raw material for them. But in order to do that one, the large enterprise, they have a lot of work to do. For example, the training, providing the training for the farmers on how to grow a qualified vegetable, and then how to taking care of the vegetable, how to make a productive harvestment. So that we can see the model in Laos is more on the large enterprise engaging with the IB models. But if we can talk with the small MSME itself, of course, limitation in terms of financial or even like a human resource or even a capacity to do with the local people is still less. So that I think it depends on the country. But of course, IB models can apply to all kind of the business. And there is a very small lines between the social enterprise and the IB itself. Yeah. It's a business model.
Yeah. Well, I hope this clarifies the concept, and I think we have to close it because one of my teachers has always told us not to stand between the buffalo and the river, and in this case, the river is the gala dinner. So this room will have to be prepared for the gala dinner for later. Just very, very short conclusion. I think one of the things, if you allow me, is that one of the things that we've seen is that different countries have different requirements, and this requires different measured approaches. At the same time, what we've also seen that the governments have a whole variety of tools they can actually develop in order to support inclusive businesses. And these tools could go through the entire ecosystem and touch upon early stage, at the same time as more mature companies and multinationals. Also, governments can intervene at the more horizontal level and create pan-Asian initiatives. I think there is a demand for this, and the ASEAN Plan of Action comes very timely on this. We also noticed that the promotion of international standards can help develop more sustainably driven business models and create an opportunity for the inclusive businesses in the region and abroad, and it can also help them get into the global supply chains. So those are very short conclusions, but we will develop them further in the conclusions of this session. And I would like to, with this, thank the speakers and ask everyone here to give a round of applause for this great discussion. So thank you very much. Have also a photo, please, together with Dana.
Ladies and gentlemen, please give applause once again for the second panel today. Thank you, all the speakers. Thank you, the moderator.
Sorry, is it possible to put the other speaker together with us?